I'm taking him as the next company president. Look, I've just picked up $1,000 for the property division. My best friend, Samantha, said this with an ugly sneer I had never seen before. I could tell she was utterly mocking me. Next to her, my husband Ben was grinning stupidly. These two had been betraying me all along through their affair. Samantha probably seduced Ben away from me simply because he was the son of a big company's president. She always liked money, but I never imagined she would take my husband, her best friend's spouse. I lost my husband and my best friend all at once. Maybe I just don't have a good eye for people. I probably couldn't have done anything about this situation on my own. But I have a strong ally. I closed my eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and when I opened them, I stared down my two enemies and signaled my counterattack. My name is Kathy Anderson, a 45-year-old part-time working housewife. I work at a company while raising my 8-year-old daughter Nicole and managing daily household chores. It's not unusual for someone like me to be a working housewife. However, I'm a bit different from ordinary people. Good morning, Kathy. I'm counting on you again today. Good morning, Father. Let's work hard again today. I work at a company owned by my father-in-law, who runs a medical device manufacturer with an annual turnover of $500 million. My husband Ben is his only son. I met Ben in college, and we started dating after he confessed his feelings for me. I lost my mother early, and my dad raised me alone. He was busy with work and didn't have much time for me. I like caring women like you, Kathy. After dating for a while, he told me this. It was well known among our college friends that Ben was the son of a big business owner. I never dreamed that I would end up marrying him. From the outside, it might seem like I had one big. However, my married life with Ben was anything but happy. Hey Ben, I want to start working. I married Ben right after graduating from college, but I was restless with too much free time. I could live without working, but coming from an ordinary family, that lifestyle didn't sit well with me. So I casually mentioned wanting to work, but you know, you're the wife of a big company's CEO's son. If someone like you starts working outside, won't it cause rumors that our company is in jeopardy? Be more aware. He said this with a disgusted look and didn't allow me to work. Before our marriage, Ben said he liked caring women. It turned out he meant women who would conveniently take care of him. After marriage, Ben treated me like a servant. I hated this situation, but my request to work was ignored. I spent my days increasingly sighing. You seem down lately. Father. One late night after work, my father-in-law saw me secretly feeling down in the corner of the living room and spoke to me. I inadvertently explained my situation to him. I see. I raised him alone, but I couldn't pay much attention to him. Maybe that's why he grew up to be somewhat selfish. I thought he was a bit too selfish, but I couldn't say that in front of my father-in-law. I gave a vague response, and my father-in-law laughed troubledly, then made a suggestion. If you don't mind, Kathy, would you like to work at our company? Really? Can I? When I expressed my joy, my father-in-law nodded with a smile. He said he would talk to Ben about it, so I gratefully accepted. After that, I worked at my father-in-law's company, got pregnant with Nicole, and gave birth safely. I had hoped that having a child would bring back the kind Ben I knew before, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. Ben continued to order me around as before. In addition to that, I was busy with childcare, work, and household chores, but this lifestyle suited me better than doing nothing. Despite being the son of a CEO, Ben barely worked and seemed complacent with his position. You're working so hard for nothing. What a waste of effort. He would regularly make such snide remarks while I was busy. Lately, I felt that Ben's attitude towards me was getting worse. My frustration was building up. Ben has been terrible lately. Just the other day, this happened. That's really his fault, isn't it? Samantha was my confidant. We had been friends since high school, and she always listened to my complaints. We usually met at the same cafe we'd been going to since high school when I talked to her. Samantha was my best friend and a very important person to me. Your husband is so caring and hardworking, it's unforgivable how he treats you so carelessly. Thanks, Samantha. Seeing Samantha get angry on my behalf, I smiled wryly. While drinking her usual orange juice, Samantha continued. But you know, he's always been like that. Huh? Samantha, have you met Ben before? Samantha momentarily looked surprised, then quickly returned to smiling and continued. I've only met him once at the wedding, but it's strange to talk like I know him well. I've always heard stories about him from you, so I guess I formed an image of him in my head. Oh, I see. Sorry, Samantha. I didn't realize I'd been complaining to you so much. It felt like Samantha was someone I knew well, as I had always vented to her about my issues. I apologized her. Samantha shook her head with a wry smile. No, it's okay. Don't worry about it, Kathy. Hey, do you want some cake? I feel like having something sweet. Oh, that sounds nice. Even after that, I found myself complaining about Ben, but Samantha didn't get fed up and kindly empathized with me. Lately, Ben had been saying unpleasant things to me often, but thanks to Samantha and my father-in-law, I managed to get by each day. However, that routine abruptly came to an end. Father, why? One day, suddenly, my father-in-law fell ill and passed away. I had been hoping for his recovery and had been diligently nursing him, but it seemed my wishes were in vain. Initially, he still appeared energetic, but as the days passed, he became frail and then he was gone. Grandpa. Nicole, who loved her grandfather dearly, looked sad. She had always come with me to visit and helped take care of him. On the other hand, her actual son, Ben, said, "You're going to take care of him, so I don't need to go, right?" He never visited even once and showed no sign of sadness even when his father passed away. I don't really get this stuff. I'll leave it all to you. Furthermore, he left all the arrangements for the funeral and the paperwork that followed to me. I managed with the help of my father-in-law's company's lawyer and the employees, but I couldn't help being dismayed by Ben's behavior even at such a time. He barely attended the funeral as the only son, and afterwards, he did not mourn and continued coming home late. I'm home. That day, too, Ben returned home late, and I looked at him with dismay as he entered the living room. It was just as Nicole had finished her bath and was getting ready for bed. His face was flushed, perhaps from drinking somewhere. Dad, you smell like alcohol. Nicole, like me, frowned and muttered. Ben, it's been only half a month since your father passed. Where are you going out every single day? I finally couldn't stand it anymore and asked him, but he just scowled unhappily. Where I go is my business, isn't it? Don't pry into everything. You don't have the right to tie me down. Even so, it's only been a short while since your father passed. So, I have to stay home all the time? Being around your gloomy face all the time would drive me crazy. His utterly unreasonable response made me snap back at him. When I wanted to start working, you told me to be aware of my responsibilities as the wife of a big company's CEO's son. How about you start acting like the son of a CEO yourself? What would people think if you just wander around outside right after your father's death? Ah. However, mid-sentence, Ben threw his bag at me. Fortunately, it missed both me and Nicole and fell to the floor. Ben glared at me furiously. Don't get cocky just because you're my wife. If you say something cheeky again, I won't let it go. With an angry face, he left the living room. Left behind were just Nicole and I, stunned. Mom, are you okay? Nicole, recovering sooner, looked at me with concern. I snapped out of it and smiled at her. I'm okay. I'm sorry, Nicole, you had a rough time, didn't you? It's not your fault, Mom. Even in such times, my kind daughter comforted me. If it weren't for Nicole, I might have broken down. Despite Nicole also grieving for her beloved grandfather, she still offered me comforting words. Maybe marrying Ben was a mistake, but becoming a family with my father-in-law and Nicole was a precious treasure I gained from this marriage. A few days later. Sigh. I had managed to settle the paperwork, and all that was left was to prepare for the month memorial for my father-in-law. It seemed like a good time to contact Samantha and vent a bit. Oh, a call from Ben. Ben, who was out again today, suddenly called. Hello. What's up? I have something to talk about. Come to the cafe near the station. His imperious tone almost made me sigh out loud, but thinking it would be more trouble to refuse, I headed to the designated place. This is the cafe you and Samantha often use, isn't it? The cafe we had been going to since high school looked old from the outside but served delicious food, and the atmosphere inside was calming and tasteful. It was quite surprising that Flashy Ben knew this place, but as I entered, I was about to learn an astonishing fact. What? What did you just say? Ben, who had been waiting at a back table, thrust something at me as soon as I sat down. That's why I said we're getting married. I'm divorcing you. Ben smirked as he thrust the divorce papers at me. I was shocked, not because Ben wanted a divorce, but because the person he intended to marry was sitting next to him, and it was a shocking revelation. Sorry, Kathy. I'm taking your husband, okay? Samantha, my best friend, said this with a sarcastic tone. She casually entwined her arm with Ben's. Ben's dad has passed away, and all the paperwork is done, right? I thought it was a good opportunity to get all the troublesome stuff out of the way. Right, Ben? Samantha smiled, and Ben nodded back with a smile. Since when? Suppressing the quiver in my voice, I asked the two of them. Well, it might have been right after Nicole was born. I visited your house and saw Ben there. He said you hadn't been taking care of him, and it seemed he was quite pent up. Samantha spoke with a smug grin, a hideous smile I had never seen before. You should start preparing to leave. I'll let you stay in the house out of pity until you're ready to go. I'll be at Samantha's place, so call me when you're ready. Although I still had questions, the two left the divorce papers at the cafe and swiftly exited. I looked at the divorce papers, which only Ben had signed, and let out a small sigh. Then, I neatly folded the papers, tucked them into my bag, and pulled out my smartphone to contact someone. A few days later. Are you ready to leave? Ben returned home after a long absence. After that day, he really did move into Samantha's house and hadn't come back here once. In the meantime, I hurriedly finished certain preparations and called Ben yesterday. By the way, Nicole is not here right now. It wouldn't be right to involve her in the ugly conflict about to unfold among the adults. So, I had left Nicole with a close colleague from work who has children this morning. Nicole is very fond of her and gets along well with her colleague's children, so I think she's having a good time. I haven't been to this house in a while. It's always such a grand home. I can't believe I'll be living here now. A plain woman like you doesn't deserve a house like this. Samantha was in a good mood next to Ben. I didn't invite her, but she came along anyway. Even as she hurled insults at me, she wore a smile. It seemed she was thrilled about the prospect of becoming the wife of a CEO's son after my divorce from Ben. Please, have a seat. I led them to the living room, and they looked surprised. What the hell? Don't let strangers into my house. What, you've been cheating too? Fair game, then. In the living room sat a serious-looking man in a suit. He didn't bat an eyelid at their rude comments. Please, don't say such things. This man was someone I had invited, and certainly not a lover. As I took my seat, ignoring their petty taunts, I responded. So? Are you ready for the divorce? Yes. I have the divorce papers right here. As I presented the completed divorce forms, the two smirked. Pfft. At least you're prepared. Do you know what's coming next? You'll no longer be the wife of a CEO's son. You'll lose your money, your home, everything. What awaits you is a bleak future now that Ben has dumped you. Samantha gloated, but I calmly replied. Samantha, just one question. Why did you cheat with Ben? Isn't it obvious? Ben is the heir to a major company. Marrying him means I'll never have to worry about money. Hearing this, I realized in my heart. She had always been fond of money. During our student days, she was so devoted to her part-time jobs that her grades plummeted. Even as adults, I had noticed her greed for money, but since she was my best friend, I never reprimanded her. Looking back, maybe if I had spoken up then, things might not have come to this. But it was too late for anything now. Ben, having heard Samantha's words, shrugged exaggeratedly and wrapped his arm around her waist. Hey. You're after my money, aren't you? Oh, I do love you, too. Just as much as I love your money. Samantha laughed vulgarly and turned back to me. Then, as if taking out a wad of cash from her purse, she tossed it in front of me. I'm taking him as the next company president. Here, pick up $1,000 for the property division. You'll need it once you're divorced from him and have no money, so I'm generously giving you $1,000. What vulgar people! Their repugnant behavior made me grimace. As I pondered how to retort, the man in the suit next to me began to shake his shoulders. Then, suddenly, he burst into hearty laughter. What? Ben sounded deflated, and Samantha looked perplexed. Sorry. I couldn't help but laugh at how oblivious you are to your own situations. The man wiped tears from his eyes, pulled out a business card holder, and introduced himself while handing them his card. Pleased to meet you for the first time. I was counsel for the late President Anderson, Lawyer Hansen. A lawyer? Samantha's voice faltered. Clearly, she hadn't expected a lawyer to be present, and Ben's face was equally shocked. Then, Lawyer Hansen dropped a bombshell that almost made them jump out of their seats. You are Ben's mistress, Ms. Samantha Owen, was it? You seem to think that you'll be the next president's wife, but that's a huge misconception. The heir is actually the wife here. And he's unemployed. At Lawyer Hansen's words, their jaws dropped in disbelief, their faces stunned. Watching their expressions, I remembered something. When my father-in-law was still clear-headed in the hospital, he suddenly told me this. Kathy, divorce him after I'm gone. Ben is cheating on you. I was shocked by my father-in-law's words, but at the same time, it made sense. A few years ago, I found a woman's accessory in Ben's bag, along with a hotel receipt. It was clear he was cheating, as he would never buy me such a gift. Although the thought of divorce briefly crossed my mind, I couldn't leave my father-in-law, Daniel, in the care of Ben, who was always fooling around. Moreover, if Ben and I divorced, I would likely gain custody, which would mean Daniel and Nicole being separated. Daniel and Nicole get along so well, but sometimes I feel jealous. I didn't want to separate them, so I had turned a blind eye to the affair. At that time, I didn't suspect that Samantha was the other woman, nor did Daniel seem to know the specifics about the affair. When I told him, he looked shocked for a moment and then sighed heavily. I never thought I was forcing such hardships on you, Kathy. No, that's not it. It's also for Nicole's sake. I didn't want to be separated from you either. I love you just as much as Nicole does. Daniel, on the verge of tears, managed a smile. Then, with a determined look, he said something even more surprising. If you're willing, Kathy, I'd like to leave all my inheritance to you. What? I don't want him to have my inheritance. It seems that just as I had grown disillusioned with Ben, Daniel had long since given up on him. No, Father, I don't need any inheritance. Please, just stay healthy as long as you can. That's what I replied at the time, but it seems Daniel had already been making preparations. After he passed away, when I contacted Lawyer Hansen to handle various matters, I was informed that Daniel had prepared a will leaving everything to me. And so, all of Daniel's company and estate will belong to you, Kathy. The will that Lawyer Hansen brought was in front of us. Just in case, the will given to them was a copy. And soon enough, that precaution proved necessary. I will never accept this. No sooner had he shouted this than he tore the will in half. Seeing the will torn in two, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief that I had made copies. If you're taking over the company, does that mean you become the president? The next president is supposed to be me. And you're just a housewife. Sure, you worked at Dad's company, but you were just a part-timer, you can't run a business. It was almost laughable that he didn't know. Instead of speaking out, I kept my composure and informed him of what he did not know. Just a part-timer? No, I am the head of the secretarial office. After getting married, I began working at Daniel's company. Initially, as Ben said, I was a part-timer, but loving the work, I dedicated myself and gained experience. My efforts were recognized, and I was hired as a full employee. I was promoted smoothly and eventually became the head of the secretarial office. The primary role of our office is to support the busy president. I've been watching the president's work up close for many years. Furthermore, Daniel had been preparing me to be his successor by letting me handle the president's duties in secret. Father-in-law had already laid the groundwork with the executives before he passed. The next president won't be you, who has just flitted about aimlessly, making no effort. It will be me, who has continued to work hard. Lawyer Hansen nodded in agreement. All the official procedures have already been completed. The only people who believe you are going to be the next president are the two of you. Ben's face gradually lost all color. His eyes darted around, and when he glanced down at the torn will on the table, he stared intently at the written words. It was a statement of rejection from Daniel to his son. I leave nothing of my inheritance to Ben, my only blood relative. Disowning his son was no small matter. Ben had lived so selfishly that he drove his own father to this point. This outcome was Ben's own doing. I returned the $1,000 that had been thrown at me earlier to the two, who were now pale-faced. You two will be in trouble without money now, won't you? Ben won't be the next president, and after being divorced and kicked out of this house by me, you'll lose everything. So here, take this back. Use it for living expenses. At my words, Samantha's face turned bright red with anger. This is no joke. I will never accept this. Samantha slapped away my hand as I tried to return the $1,000. Her face contorted with rage as she lunged at Lawyer Hansen. Ben is the only blood relative. He's supposed to inherit the company. There's no way I'll allow her to take over the company and inherit everything. Samantha's face was red-hot with anger. To her, Lawyer Hansen responded with a look of disbelief. You say you won't accept it, but you're the only ones who don't. The legal procedures have been followed, and the company's executives unanimously support Kathy as the new president. Personally, I also think Kathy being the president is for the best. Lawyer Hansen glanced at Ben. I am also the company's legal advisor. Ben, have you ever met me? No, right? You mistook me for Kathy's lover. Lawyer Hansen let out a heavy sigh. If you had been serious about your duties as the next president, we would have met many times. You haven't done any training to be president. It's absurd to think you could be one. If that happened, the company Daniel left behind would be ruined. Such a big responsibility is impossible for an incompetent person like you. I'm not a business manager, but even I can see that. I was a bit startled by Lawyer Hansen's blunt words. Glancing at his face, I saw a trace of anger. Lawyer Hansen had owed a great deal to Daniel. When he was struggling after starting his law firm, Daniel had given him work to keep his business afloat. Later, Daniel appointed him as the company's legal advisor, and he always said he owed Daniel a great debt. The contempt Ben continued to show towards his father probably angered Lawyer Hansen. Now, with reality harshly laid out before him by Lawyer Hansen, Ben slumped weakly in his chair. His complexion went from pale to paper white. You. Still unable to accept the situation, Samantha tried to grab Lawyer Hansen. I caught her hand to stop her. Let go of me. You can't even train your husband properly, you loser. Don't touch me. Instead of retaliating against her foul language, I simply stated the facts. If you harm this man even slightly, the company staff waiting outside will come running. What? When did they? For this meeting, the board members suggested having a third party present in case something unexpected happened. The company staff I had asked for help includes people who practice karate and judo, all skilled in their arts. After the two entered the house, I had them wait discreetly in front. Upon learning this, Samantha's face paled, and she quietly sat down. It seemed she realized she had no chance of winning. With their initial bravado gone, I decided to deliver the final blow. I will be suing you both for damages. Lawyer Hansen and I are already discussing this matter. At the mention of a lawsuit, the two, who had been deflated, suddenly looked up. Then, Samantha tried to cling to me. I'm so sorry. Please, forgive me. I truly regret it and will apologize as much as it takes to satisfy you. You will forgive me, right? After all, we are best friends, aren't we? I pushed away Samantha's hands, attempting to cling to me, and replied with a cold voice. No, I'm cutting ties with you. I absolutely refuse to be friends with someone who would steal another person's husband for money. It's repulsive, so don't ever pretend to be my friend again. At that moment, Samantha's face fell into despair, and then Ben knelt down, making an absurdly inappropriate suggestion. I'm sorry for everything. Let's start over. What? It would be too sad for Nicole if we divorced, wouldn't it? His words ignited a sudden rage inside me. How dare he use our daughter as a reason for his selfishness? Nicole asks me every day, when will you divorce Papa? Huh? Nicole is already 8 years old. She's not an ignorant child. She, like me and your father, has long since grown weary of your selfish behavior. Indeed, Nicole, like Daniel and myself, had lost all familial love for Sean due to his constant self-centered actions. Seeing the pain on my face, she repeatedly expressed her wish for me to divorce and find relief. It took time, but I am finally able to fulfill Nicole's wish. You no longer have a family. Those who were your family have all turned their backs on you. I will divorce you, so live happily with Samantha. Isn't that what you wanted? These words seemed to be the last straw for Ben, who collapsed in despair. Samantha also sat down on the floor, covering her face with her hands and sobbing. Later, I tried to get the two of them out of the house, but they were too busy wallowing in despair and crying, and wouldn't leave. So, I called on the company staff waiting outside for help to finally get them out. This house, too, was left to me by Daniel. The ownership has already been transferred to me, and it is no longer theirs. I plan to continue living here with my beloved daughter and the memories of Daniel. Thanks to Lawyer Hansen, the process for the damage claims was smoothly completed. Ben had to sell his belongings and still had to borrow from consumer finance to cover the rest. Considering he has no decent job history, I wonder what kind of shady consumer finance would lend to him, but as long as he pays the compensation, it's none of my concern. Samantha had exhausted her savings to pay the damages and even tried to borrow from friends. However, once her friends learned of the affair, they all cut ties with her. Among them were mutual friends of mine and Samantha. They were all disgusted with her and concerned for me. From what I heard from those friends, Ben, having nowhere else to go and no money, had moved into Samantha's place. However, Samantha blamed him for her troubles and they frequently fought, which once led to their neighbors calling the police. Eventually, Samantha kicked Ben out, and I have no knowledge of his whereabouts after that. Wherever he is, it has nothing to do with me. As for Samantha, her struggles to repay the damages led her into financial difficulty, and like Ben, she ended up dealing with predatory lenders. Her fate seems as miserable as his. Meanwhile, I have taken over as president of the company Daniel left me, and despite the education he provided, the job is quite challenging. I manage with the support of other employees. What soothes my busy days is my dear daughter. Mom, welcome home. Good job at work today. I'm home, Nicole. Thanks for always welcoming me. Are you hungry? I'll make your favorite omelet today. Yay! I love your omelet, Mom. Just seeing Nicole's smile makes all the fatigue vanish. I know the days ahead will still be tough, but with Nicole by my side, I'm sure I'll be fine. And in heaven, I know Daniel is watching over us too. To ensure he can rest peacefully, I will do my utmost to fulfill my duties.